defending you on one of my comments now, Heather.
Did you like my last one?
I did. I put the comment up. I can go with this only if there's a safe word. That's all I need.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Paradigm Shift podcast. We are back after a little 2-week break that was desperately needed on my end. So tonight we are going to delve into the wild world of conspiracy theory. I thought it was a really good topic because I've been just constantly arguing with lots and lots of people online about various conspiracy theories. We can kind of talk about what a conspiracy theory is. I think a lot of us, I think we all to some extent kind of indulge into conspiracy theories even a little bit. I certainly have in my life. I think that in modern times, they've certainly become much more common. And I think we are potentially headed towards the dangerous zone of conspiracy levels. And I say that based on the most recent wild conspiracy theory that Trump and his ridiculous legal team is spreading about the election being stolen by Venezuelan communists who've been dead for like 7 years, and how it
makes perfect sense to me, Nick. I don't know what your problem is.
Right? Trump won.
Trump won, that's right. My wife is telling me that I didn't play the music, and that is actually untrue. I did play the music, and I forgot to share my screen. So I apologize to everybody. I will do that when we sign out. All right, so that's the latest conspiracy theory. I did promise one of our viewers that I would talk about the Russia debacle, because I think one of the main, and I think to some extent justifiably so, responses to allegations of conspiracy on the right by people who are on the right is how the left for 4 years was engaged in this what many people consider a massive conspiracy theory about Trump being a Russian, spy agent, etc. So I'll say this for that theory. Number one, his Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who was appointed by him and a Republican, right, appointed a special counsel to investigate him. There was a foundation to this theory. Now, the theory got a little bit out of control, and people who were saying things like Trump is a Russian asset since 1986, etc., and so on, went a little overboard to hysterics in many occasions. However, there is ample evidence that there were lots and lots of inappropriate interactions. We could talk about Mike Flynn. We can talk about Don Jr. and Jared Kushner and Joey Buttafuoco. I always forget the guy's name, the campaign manager. Paul, what is it? I can't remember.
Manafort.
Talking
about Paul Manafort?
Yeah. And they're meeting with the Russian lawyer. And I guess the difference here is that there was a basis for it that was pretty legitimate. And there was an actual investigation that was led by people in Trump's administration. So it's not like everybody just went crazy and made stuff up, right? It stemmed from somewhere. And then the more conspiratorial people kind of took it too far. And Rachel Maddow and people like that went a little off the edge with that. But
right. Trump derangement syndrome there.
So I think that's true to an extent, right? I think there is a little bit of Trump derangement syndrome. I know I've suffered from it a little bit. And I think it's really hard not to get wrapped up in that because he's such a fucking asshole. And like
Yes.
right. And like he's such a bad guy and he does all this immoral stuff and he constantly lies and he pushes all these, he violates all these norms and he just and he's constantly attacking people. So it's really easy for someone, in the Democratic Party or on the left to kind of be, or even Republicans to some extent, to get wrapped up in that stuff and to become a little bit hysterical themselves. But I do think that the right has taken the conspiracies to a whole other level. I think it's much more prevalent than it used to be. And so I guess what we can talk about a couple of different things. How serious of a problem do you guys think it is? Do you think it's as serious as I think it is? And we can talk about, what a conspiracy is and what a conspiracy isn't. I know you had some disagreement on my post about the coronavirus, and it was a legitimate disagreement because there was a study done by a Johns Hopkins assistant professor in economics on the numbers being a little bit skewed, or a lot skewed in this case. But that's still in sort of pre-analyst stage, and I think that the people at Johns Hopkins had a lot of problems with it, so we'll have to see where it goes. But it was a legitimate pushback. So I don't want to.
That's not conspiracy, though. That's a legit, debate.
Yeah, that's what I'm. That's why I'm trying to make that distinction.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
A conspiracy theory is something, in my mind. When I say conspiracy theory, I mean, something that is not based in evidence, right? Wild Bat Boy is born from alien Frankenstein woman, right? The stuff we used to see in the National Enquirer while we were at in line at the grocery store, that's become mainstream on the right now, right? Before it was just crazy people who believed it. Now it's lots of people, right? And so, why is that happening? And what can we do about it, right? How can we kind of help to kind of root out some of this stuff? So how about we go to Chuck, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, I think conspiracy theory, I've got a fairly high bar for it. It's got to have at least a kernel of truth, or else, the thing you said about Bat Boy being born to the Bride of Frankenstein. Yeah, that's funny. I wouldn't call it a conspiracy theory because there's no way anyone this side of sane is going to believe that. The conspiracy theory's got a couple of things that are just truthful enough in it to make you go, maybe. I guess in our generation, the ultimate conspiracy theory has been, 9/11 was an inside job. But there have been several others. And I think, yes, the whole election was stolen mantra has taken on the airs of a conspiracy theory, where you imagine this series of Rube Goldberg-like circumstances all happening one after another, each more fantastical than the one before it. And somehow this, we've seen the meme from the movie where the guy has all the dots on the board and the strings connected him and he's smoking a cigarette. And he's going, it's all connected. It's all connected. We've all seen that one. Yeah, that's what I think of with conspiracy theories. But again, there's just enough truth in there to get you to hook some people. And, a lot of people fall for the bait because, let's be honest, if you think about a conspiracy theory, you are thinking that there are dark forces lined up against you and are working against you. That means you must be important. You must merit the attention of these dark forces. The truth that you're not that goddamn important is less appealing. So they're not going to go that route. There's no fun in not being important and not being the target of a conspiracy theory. So yeah, they're going to eschew that all the time and work from the assumption that there's a whole lot of bad guys working against me and everything that I love. Now, just from a big umbrella standpoint, my theory on conspiracy theories has always been this, and 9/11 again being just sort of the ultimate example. Think about all of the elements that were required in the course of planning and executing the 9/11 attacks. Now, again, imagine that it was an inside job, that people that worked there put explosives in the two towers and Trade Center number 7. And of course, they coordinated the other 2 planes to do their thing. Think about all the people that would have had to set up think about the vast number of people that would have to be in on this conspiracy. Now, think about the last time you tried to plan a surprise birthday party and told 5 people. You could not keep them quiet. Somebody's going to fuck up and, and spoil the surprise to somebody. That's human nature. And the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that would have to, in some degree, be involved in a 9/11 inside job conspiracy, yeah, somebody's going to spill the beans. A whole lot of people are going to spill the beans. Again, the truth of the matter that Islamic terrorists hijacked 4 planes, 2 of them hit the 2 towers of the World Trade Center and brought them down. That's not as much fun. This is more fun. Again, that thought that dark forces are working against you is very appealing, mainly because it makes you a very important person in your universe. And so, yeah, once someone is convinced of that, it's like if someone's arguing from an emotional standpoint, and you can't reason with that. If someone is angry, scared, or whatever, arguing from a position of extreme emotion, you cannot use logical appeals on someone like that. And someone who is that invested in a conspiracy theory has long since rejected the very concept of reason. They have passed that exit about 10 miles back. They are unreasonable. So,
I think you're freezing up, Chuck.
No, I thought that was me.
so limiting the, we there? I believe the best way to battle bad information is better information. I don't believe in silencing them necessarily, unless of course they are breaking law, slander, libel, or something like that, or making direct threats. Apart from that, though, gosh knows, the best thing about free speech is you can identify the idiots quickly. If you live in a totalitarian society, you have to kind of guess. But yeah, I don't have the interest in, I have an interest in appealing to the better angels of the nature of the 95% of the people that know this is bullshit, and let's just move on. Again, that's sort of my thing.
So why do you think, so when you talk about 9/11, I think that's a great example, right? Those are really, I mean, if you listen to some of the conspiracies, they're really intricate, and people have done, a lot of definitely thinking about the complex details of it. In this particular one, right, in this latest election one, it's sort of just things are coming out of nowhere, right? I mean, they're just picking stuff out, like Dominion, right? Now they're
right.
Sort of, they just took this. There's no evidence, right? No significant evidence, with the exception of people making allegations who are primarily Trump supporters or Trump lawyers or Trump people. And then, they're sort of just going in public and they're saying, this is it. It's taken no time. There's none of that. It's just,
right.
There's no, basically the foundation of the conspiracy theory is Joe Biden is boring. He didn't do a lot of campaigning. Therefore, ... It's like they're starting at this conclusion and they're trying to work their way backwards.
Yeah,
and
they don't include in the equation the fact that their candidate has radioactive toxicity. No, Biden's boring, so he must.
It's not about Biden, and Trump says this too. It's not about the candidate you ran against. It's about you. It's the hatred against you. It's your obnoxious behavior. So I guess my question is, but those 9/11 conspiracies too used to be at the fringe of society. And now we've pulled this all the way. It's in the presidency, and it's being, shouted, onto 80 million followers on Twitter every single day, and all kinds of news programs and radio shows. And a large portion of the right Republican Party has bought into this, right? At least to some extent. It's like 70-80% people believe in this stuff. I mean, even if you don't
like the QAnon phenomenon of recently, I guess, is the more contemporary version of the conspiracy theory, the QAnon theories.
Except the QAnon conspiracy people are a really small percentage of the Republican Party. The scary part about this one is 70-80% of the Republican Party thinking that the election was stolen or there was some sort of fraud or whatever, that it wasn't fair. That's dangerous, because you have a massive portion of the electorate that doesn't believe in that democracy is working for them, right? And you have Trump constantly pushing that idea, and they believe what he says like it's, religious doctrine, right?
Yeah.
And so
that poll that you mentioned this week with the 70%, that was disturbing. Yes, no doubt about it. I wonder if the question was phrased in such a way to influence the answer, because you can believe that there was some chicanery going on here or there without thinking that it costs tens of hundreds of thousands of votes. Yes, I mean, in a nation this big with 335 million people, yeah, they're going to be a bad actor here, there. Now, is it cynic, which would be required to really make a difference in the outcome of a nationwide election? Obviously, that's not the case, but I wonder how many people believe that there was chicanery to that level.
And I think a lot of the times, I think a lot of the times when they do those polls, it's kind of misleading. All right, Heather, why don't you step in here?
Well, yeah, you just have to be vigilant. Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to say, I think that it's helpful for a lot of sort of detailed reasons. It's really hard to unpack because there were a lot of things that prefaced this whole issue with the lack of faith in the voting system, all the way back to 2016 when we saw this with Bernie Sanders supporters saying, hey, there's a lot of fraud going on here, there's a lot of rigging going on here. And we know that it was something stupid, 15% of Bernie voters defected and became Trump voters. Who knows where they came from before that? That's, I think, a separate argument. But there was a lot of fraud and things that people talked about even then. And then you have a presidency of 4 years that's constantly sowing things that were already kind of there with the deep state theories and the establishment theories, and sort of tying those two things together. The lack of belief in climate change. Yeah, undermining the mainstream education system, by putting Debbie DeVos there, and people wanting to break up the teachers' unions, and then saying it's all liberal brainwashing going on from elementary all the way through the college system. And then all of the undermining of our journalists and the press, I think that has a lot to do with it, because when you don't believe the institutions that we have in place that are filled with professionals and peers who have come to agree on common knowledge that has been shared for ages and ages, but you have people who don't have that common knowledge because they didn't partake in those things. And then they go and they find 4chan and 8chan and Parler and what have you, and vloggers and vlogs and talking heads who have these ideas. They can't differentiate between what they're hearing from those people versus all of the professional arenas that we have in journalism, in history, in science, in the medical field. They can't differentiate the information. So they're not coming to the table with this idea that the authorities on various subjects should be listened to because they have this vast knowledge on a subject. This person over here has a pretty good idea, and it conflicts with the idea being told to me over here. So for them, it's the same playing level. And I can't tell you how many Trump supporters I know and have met that are pretty new to politics And so that's yet another arena that they don't understand. We happen to be political junkies, so we tend to understand a lot more than they do, but they don't know that. They don't know that they're talking to someone who is tapped in, tuned in, like 24/7 politics, which is ridiculous when you think about us. But they think that they have the same means coming to the table that we do, and they just don't. It's not the same. It's not an equal playing field, which is why I think all of us condescendingly try to like say, oh no, it's this, and that, you know, like look at all this thing. And they can't even argue the points that you're telling them point by point. It was like what you quoted from the article. I don't even know what article you quoted, but you can't debunk their conspiracies by going point by point, because they're not even coming to the conversation with the same knowledge that you have. You know, it's like you have to really, really go back and start from ground zero
You can't
to get the
battle
point across about
irrationality
one
with
simple little thing.
Yeah,
You
What's
can't
that?
battle the irrationality with rational thought.
right.
No,
Yeah.
no. And it's so out of control because media is so easy to just listen to now and spread. So disinformation just, it's like that. It just gets out there, and then all of a sudden it's viral.
Yeah.
It's just, how do we combat that?
So the idea in the article that I sent, I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to read it, by the David Brooks New York Times article, which I thought was really good. He proposes at the end of it that basically that the people who are sort of the true believers, which is a growing number of people, are in many times people in our society who feel like, you know, they're looked down upon. They're, you know, sort of inferior in some way, whether it be economically, intellectually, or and this is a way of sort of compensating, like, you know, look at all of this information that I have that nobody else has, and let me sort of explain to you why everything that you're saying is wrong, and you know, and it's, yeah, and I think that Chuck has a point. Like, it's a way for people to kind of say, I'm this really important person who has all the, you know, this information that no one knows about.
Makes you feel smart. Yeah, Leah, look at all this stuff I can say. Ooh, really? Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So Ashley, I know we've had some conversations about this recently. What is your 2 cents or quarter?
I don't know, like, I agree with a lot of this stuff, and we had talked about that article earlier in terms of the inferiority or some sort of complex that people are latching onto or compensating for in some capacity. I think that there's two, like we talked about earlier, I think that there's two groups of people that kind of latch on to these conspiracy theories. Like, you have the people that are like, whoa, gung-ho crazy into it. And then you have the people that are like, I'm going to repeat some of this stuff because the system has pissed me off. So I'm going to get a little bit of into this, but I'm not sure I really buy all of it, but I'm going to repeat it anyways because it sounds good. And then you have the people that are like, no, this is fact. So yeah, I think that there's like two subsets of these conspiracy latching people, if you want.
I think Chuck kind of touched on that before with the poll numbers. I do think that there is a huge percentage of the Republican Party, the right wing, that really resents the shit out of a lot of our institutions, like Heather was saying, right? The intellectual elite,
Well,
the media.
Yeah, I was gonna. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was gonna just make that quick point. Yeah, the people like, or entities like the media, who are spreading about people no longer trusting them. If they want to find somebody to blame for that, it is as close as the nearest mirror. It's their fucking fault. 100%. They have gleefully abdicated their role as the fourth estate and have become nothing but activists on both sides, left and right. There is no media anymore. There is no one that can be trusted. There is no more Walter Cronkite. that is a part of our society that is gone, and they killed themselves. So anytime I hear someone in the media fretting about how people don't trust him anymore, shut the fuck up. You did it yourself. I
Okay,
have
so-
zero sympathy.
So this is the part where I think we need a little bit of nuance, because I
Mhm.
agree with what you're saying, but I wanna differentiate between the conspiratorial stuff and the actual fact-based stuff. Is it true if you're a Republican right-leaning person and you watch, whether it's PBS, NPR, ABC, CBS, NBC, anything like that, and I know it's hard for people who lean left to see it because to them, this is the reality, right? But there's a huge bias there. And I don't think that they're aware of it, or at least the media isn't aware of it, or at least they're not reporting things in a way that that people are perceiving as being balanced.
Yeah, I know where I know where you're getting at, Nick, and it is true. It's sometimes it's very subtle, but the cumulative effect of years and years of subtleness, it becomes not so subtle anymore. Just classic
Exactly.
example,
Yeah.
a situation where on a largely party line vote, a bill was passed in Congress. The media, and I say mainstream CBS, the alphabet soup media, if it's a Democratic Congress, the media story will read or lead with, in a solid show of solidarity today, Democrats banded together and passed Bill XYZ. If it's a Republican, marching in lockstep today, Republican leaders, do you see the bias? And that happens all the time.
And
Subtle,
there are
constant.
right, and there are definitely examples that I could bring up of them doing that repeatedly, and I totally agree.
And
with
that has created Trump. That has created a lot of this culture that we're decrying in this debate. The fact that what was once a largely trusted institution has gleefully abandoned that, while insisting to us that they have not. That's the key. They
So-
still put on the pretense of being calling balls and strikes, and they're not anymore.
I think it's totally fair to put a lot of that responsibility on the media. I think what I want to differentiate between is fake news and biased news. Fake news, and the reason that I want to is because I think it's an important distinction, because it happens, right? But if a major news outlet reports something that is just not true, which has happened, they get really especially now they get really hammered by it, and criticized by the right and even by other media networks that are supposedly mainstream. So it's not something that people will let pass. And so CNN isn't like sitting at CNN making things up, right? What they're doing is they're reporting things, and there also should be a distinction between what's a show that's like commentary, right? An entertainment show,
Sure,
like
yeah.
Sean Hannity, right? Or Rachel
Straight
Maddow.
news,
Those are entertainment shows, right? They're not reporting the news as
Sure.
much as they are commentators, right? And so,
Correct.
so I think that's important. So like when you watch CNN, they're reporting the news. Is there a bias there? Yeah, a lot of times there is. It probably depends on what show you're watching, just like it would on Fox, right? And same thing with MSNBC or NBC, MSNBC, whatever. I do think that this idea that it's fake and it's just being made up and they're just doing all this stuff, that's where you get into conspiratorial. But
Yeah,
whose
that's
respons-
far-fetched.
Yeah, right. But whose responsibility it
that's
is? A lot of it does fall on the media itself for the way that they report the news. I agree. Certain media outlets are worse than others. Honestly, I think the Dispatch is the best. I recommend everybody read it. I think it's I think it's straight up. I really enjoy it. It is.
But it's written from a slant. It's opinion. It's not news. Yeah.
The Dispatch is, well, they have
The
some news
Dispatch
stuff,
is opinion, not news.
but and it has a right
Well, true,
slant
yeah.
to it's conservative, I should say, not Trump supporters for sure, but it's very
Sure.
balanced in how they report it. And I know this because I listen to everything, right? Or I shouldn't say I know this. That's my perspective. But so in any event, and I think it's the same way with other things, right? Too. Why is my light going off? So like elite institutions, right?
He's under attack.
Harvard, Yale, all of those institutions, right? There's resentment towards them too, because they've done things in the past, right, that have that were perceived as anti-conservative. What is it? The university liberal left-wing stuff that especially went on in like the early 90s and stuff, and is sort of carried through until now. So it's just like this whole thing that's taken a really dramatic turn from reasonably sort of resentful and on the right to conspiratorial madness, right? So, you know, so anyway, if you guys want to kind of respond to that, it was a lot.
I'll just be real quick because the other two have not talked nearly as
Yeah.
much as I have so far. Now, the whole thing about the media is they have, again, in my opinion, they have gleefully surrendered this role as the fourth estate in order to stake out a claim where they're or a market niche where they're going to get the most viewers and readers. I mean, you know, that's capitalism. I can't blame them in that respect. But man, don't continue to call yourself biased balls and strike arbiters. The problem with the mistakes that you were talking about, when the media makes a mistake, 98% of the time that mistake goes in one direction. That's not a mistake. What the problem that has happened, particularly the last 4 years, and I know this having a journalism background, is that they have abandoned a whole lot of journalistic discipline. Journalistic discipline forces you to research information. And before you put something on that is unnecessarily inflammatory, you research it, you get redundancy of confirmation. And on so many of these mistakes, as they call them, the mistake was made because they did not properly vet the information. They abandoned journalistic principles. Why? They wanted to be first. They wanted to have CNN say, according to my news organization, Trump, da, 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 da. And when you abandon discipline, and again, when you do it almost exclusively in one direction, people are under no obligation to trust you anymore. So yes, part of the thing that insulates us from being all conspiracy theorists is having trust in institutions. Well, our trust or lack of trust in the media is not our fault. It is the media's fault. And I'll just leave it at that.
Heather, did you have something to say? Oh, we lost her. I'm assuming not.
I guess not.
Ash, did you want to weigh in on the?
She's been having an issue, I think, with it today.
Yeah. Ash, did you want to weigh in?
You were going to ask
Sorry.
a specific question and you stopped your question halfway through.
On the media, and your perspective on the media. I don't know how you watch the news or if you even do watch the news all that frequently.
I don't.
Yeah.
I hate it. That's my personal opinion. Every once in a while, I will look at Yahoo News or Apple News.
Online stuff.
Yeah, just because it's kind of obviously having a Yahoo email and an Apple iPhone, so therefore I get both of them. But those are the only things I really look at in terms of news sources. I also have a news app on my phone, but it's not like I'm seeking out the news. Like I'm not going to watch the 6 o'clock news. I'm not going to watch the 10 o'clock news. I feel like anything that is worthwhile, I will figure out or learn about in very little time anyway.
So remember what you were telling me earlier about the taxes? Because I really think that's relevant to our conversation about how people in places like Hope Valley and Hopkinton and Richmond, rural areas, like nobody knows where that is, in rural areas,
You don't need to say where.
right, have this perspective on government and media and stuff like that. Remember? You were telling me in the
Mhm.
car. You want to expand
Yeah.
on that?
Um, so basically what I had said was that I have heard, per se, that some of the people who are anti-government or who are anti-structure in some sort of capacity are that way because they feel like the system has cheated them. They feel like they're doing a lot of work. They're doing all the work. Their taxes are going to support the people who are just kind of loafing, or those more social programming that they're not reaping the benefits from, but they're paying for them through their taxes. So they're kind of angry at the system for that because they don't understand it. They don't understand the bigger picture, and they're kind of stuck in their own little worldview, and they're not able to really see beyond that. And now this is not from me just saying this. This is from personal experiences in my direct life, aka my family.
Your
That
dad. The
So
one that Nick loves.
all those people out there that are going to be like, "What? You don't know what you're talking about?" Well, I'm sorry, I do. This comes from my own blood, unfortunately. But yeah, and that's kind of like, and within that, I have what I had said earlier about the two very different conspiracy latching subsets. I have both of them within my own family, and the one I'm referring to right now, that's kind of just angry at the system, is the one that says, "Oh yeah, that sounds good, so I'm going to repeat it," type deal. Not necessarily believing every inch of it, but yeah.
So there's like the other side of that, right? So if you talk about what you were just talking about, it's kind of like, I'm pissed off. They don't know a whole lot. They know that their tax money is going to like all of these programs. They don't really understand them, but they churn on Fox News sometimes, and they see, people ranting about socialism and all this other stuff, right? Those are people who are kind of like half in, half out, but generally just kind of pissed off. They work really hard and they feel like they're not getting anything from it, and they feel like the system's against them. And you have all these other right-wing, outlets kind of repeating that back to them.
Now, mind you, this particular person I'm talking about is actually pretty open-minded when you present facts.
Yeah, that's right. And
They
I think
will
that's
kind
true.
of, and this even goes down to the point where we were talking directly about taxes, and they said the whole thing about I'm never giving up 50% of my taxes or 40% of my taxes or whatever it might have been. And I was like, well, you don't make over $400,000 a year, so you don't have to worry about that. And they were like, wait, but that's not how it works. So I was like, yep, it is. And then I went as far as to understand help them to understand the tier-based system and the way in which we pay our taxes, which this particular person also did not understand. So there's a lot of that out there. I mean, people throw out these large numbers, and that's like, oh my God, these large numbers, they're going to take all of my money. Well, no, they're not. It's just a lack of actually understanding it and how it works.
So Heather, can you hear us now?
Yeah, gosh, I was in and out like so many times.
Yeah.
No I can piggyback off of what Ashley was saying just real quick.
Okay.
That some of that, okay, so I believe that there are plenty of Republican politicians who understand very well the message that they're giving to some of their supporters and constituents, that they purposefully manipulate information to keep themselves in office and to keep themselves enriched and to keep pleasing their donors and stuff. I think it's this huge dance, and I don't think that's quite, a far-fetched conspiracy there. I think it's something that happens in politics. And I think what happens is that sometimes the lies that they tell their constituents about things turn into vast conspiracies, because then that information just sort of floats around for years, you know, for instance, about welfare and how all of that goes and who is actually using that system. And then they change the words to say things like draining the system or using your tax money, you know. But I think that's part of the danger of what happens is when you don't come to the table as honest to begin with, and you're feeding, you know, even small lies to your constituency, it just kind of blows up. It sort of expands into conspiracies and it becomes a ridiculous mess. And I wish that they would take more responsibility for that. And I am flabbergasted over the ones that latched onto the Trump conspiracies, the recent ones, especially about the election fraud. But I don't know. I don't know why they fight so flippin' hard to hold on to that stuff when so much is at stake. It bothers me to no end that they can't just be honest about things, because you can still have a difference in opinion, which is the biggest one is big government, small government, right, Chuck? And how do we spend our money? What works best? And then these ideas of trickle down economics versus bubble up economics, and where to find the balance between who you tax and for how much. I mean, those are just the basic age-old arguments between the right and the left. It just feels like we can't even flip an argument.
That's the spice of being in a That's the spice of being in a free country. Thank God we can debate this. Yeah.
Oh, I just feel like we can't even get to those arguments anymore because they're just so layered in all of this ridiculous bullshit anymore. So
it's like it's almost as if a lot of these conspiracy Trumpist supporters that I talk to online aren't even like ideologically policy oriented. They're just fixated on ridiculous conspiracies. Like what?
They are all about Trump. They're not about policy. They're not about thoughts. They're not about ideas or ideals. They're about Trump. And I hate that. Gosh knows you should never, ever find your heroes in politics.
Especially when your hero is a piece of garbage. Come on.
Well, that too.
Like, really? This is the guy. Like, he's not even good at like covering up his awfulness. He's just...
Right, but then you get but he's not a politician and that's why we like him. Really? I'm sorry, but when you enter into politics, you become a politician.
The whole philosophy behind that is because he says what he thinks, right? And he appears authentic, except he's like a child, 5-year-old.
He's a reality television star.
Right. And
P.T. Barnum, yeah.
So I don't know. So anyway, it baffles me just as much that you have tens of millions of people supporting him, in many cases very strongly, obsessively, scarily.
I see how Trump happened. I see the things that led to the formation of Trump, the president. I am honestly surprised, not the good kind of surprised, that people are taking it this far. People are taking this feeling for this guy this far to where they are willingly overlooking facts, where they are willingly overlooking reality.
How many more court cases has to be rejected and thrown out? Videos of judges just completely, demolished.
That was a bitch slap. Pennsylvania Supreme Court did. I mean, that is the closest you will hear a judge say to get that shit out of my face. God knows. That's what that Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision was.
But they've had like 3 or 4
just
of
the
them.
lawyer that is involved in that, he is like he's hiding under a napkin now.
And a lot of these cases are being heard by Trump appointed judges. It's not like, does the conspiracy now involve people Trump appointed as judges? Like,
yes.
I just don't even understand.
Soros is paying them all.
It starts, and if you have these conversations with people, they're like, well, Biden wasn't a great candidate. You have, they say the same things. 200 affidavits, right? These affidavits, you got to read them. They're absolutely absurd. Right. They're just stupid. And a lot of them are being like taken offline. Like they're literally recruiting people from Trump, like internet sources to sign
Yeah.
affidavits. And, you
They're
know, people think,
soliciting, yeah.
well, you know, you can get in trouble if you violate that. Yeah, except you can just say that was your interpretation of the event, right? So it's really, really hard to say you were lying, right? How are you going to prove somebody's personal experience was an absolute lie? So
Right.
so that's what you have to deal with. And then they start cherry picking information, like, and they call things fake that aren't fake. And it's like you just get to a point where it's like
You can't reason with the unreasonable. And it's like we said before 20 times in this debate. You can't, if someone has abandoned reason, you cannot reason with them.
right. And so the question, so but the problem is, back 20 years ago, if we were having the same conversation about 9/11 truthers, we would say, well, these are the fringe people. Who cares? There's always been a population of fringy people, right? So let them be who they are and whatever, and let's just move on with our lives. We can't do that anymore.
Right.
We can't do that because that fringe has expanded, right? They now have the internet, which is like a really fast way for all of this bullshit to get spread.
Big megaphone.
Right. And I don't want to sound like this is only one-sided. I think a lot of this whole thing is everybody's fault. I think it's a both sides sort of accountability thing. And I know people hate when I say that, but I do think that there's a problem in the media. I do think a large portion of society have been sort of ignored and put down by some of the elites. I don't think that justifies creating wild nonsense conspiracy theories, but there is something to be said about that side sort of, you know, kind of fueling the fire. What were you going to say, Heather?
Oh, just about the news thing. You guys remember when we were kids and you'd turn on the news and it was like Fritz on Channel 4 or whatever, and he was telling you the weather and how like cheesy all of their smiles were. And I remember thinking like, God, are these real fucking people up there telling the news? And then like, so in California, it was Channel 11.
The whole parody of that, yeah.
So we didn't get cable for like the longest
Yeah.
time, right? So we had like channel, 2, 3, which was local, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, I think. And so channel 11 was our local Fox News. And I'll never forget when they hired Jillian, and I don't remember her last name, but Jillian was freaking outrageous back then. Like she would just interrupt whatever cast was on and she would crack some like lewd joke or something. And all of us were like, what the fuck, right? But it was boosting their ratings. It was boosting their ratings. And I blame her
Entertainment, exactly.
because I think she was the envelope that pushed it. And then all of a sudden it was like all media was like, let's just be actual people while we're doing our news.
I don't know.
Here reporting facts, all, land and people waiting for like 60 minutes at night to actually get like a good juicy story, because it was just like, it was literally just reporting like this story happened, this story happened, this story happened, this is the weather, this is the traffic, boom.
Yeah.
Like that's it, right? You didn't have all of this opinion-laden stuff going on. So I kind of blame that, but I also think, and I wanted to say about, Nikki made a really good point about how there's a difference between fake news media, right? And then biased news media. And so this was something that a lot of us complained about in 2016, being on the Bernie side of things, was that it's not that they were telling you lies. It was that they weren't telling you the truths that were also happening. And so I think, they didn't want Bernie to win. They obviously hate frickin' Trump, right? The left-wing media I'm talking about. They hate Trump. So why are they going to go give him any kudos whatsoever for anything that he did? Because he's such an awful freaking person. And I feel like what you were saying at the beginning of the podcast, like they've succumbed also to just doing negative coverage constantly and never acknowledging anything quote unquote good that he may or may not have done, because we can't
be this double-sided thing for Trump because he's just so freaking terrible. Like,
Well,
I can't.
Well, that's the problem. The conundrum the media is in with Trump is he is extremely hostile to them. So you already have this sort of foundation with the right where they view the media elites as being biased, right? And justifiably in some circumstances, I agree. And then Trump comes along and he has, he calls them out right to their faces. And this is what a lot of people, and Chuck, I bet you can attest to this, a lot of probably your friends love seeing Trump telling the media to go to hell, right? And standing up to him. They love that.
There was a prevailing sense of helplessness from a lot on the right that, CNN, New York Times and all, they have the megaphone and they set the agenda and we just have to follow it. And yes, they saw Trump as a hero when he told them to go to hell. That's what they had been saying to the media.
Right.
Sure.
Right. And so like did you guys recently see the thing where he told the reporter never to talk to him like that again because he's the president? So if you guys ever hang out on the right-wing media places, they were replaying that clip over and over and over and over again and saying that he was some sort of hero and he was amazing. Now, I don't understand how that makes him amazing, right? In any way, shape, or form. But that's how they see it. They see it as him standing up against this system, right? That's trying to tear him down and trying to hurt the rural part of this country. Did you see? I posted
and he
this.
has exacerbated that. Yeah, all over the years, he has constantly framed it us versus them. Us
He's
versus
exploiting
them.
it.
That's
He's
part of his
exploiting
shtick.
Yeah, and that's how a lot of people felt. Did you see the video he had? He posted on his Twitter. I mean, he retweets so many things. So the lion. So he posted
I saw it.
video. So it was actually
The lion was sick, by the way.
Oh, so originally, I think one of his former campaign people put it out. Some Italian guy, I forget his name. And so it's a lion, and the lion is surrounded by all of these hyenas. And there's like somebody's like narrating in the background, about feeling cornered and you being a lion and eventually you're going to strike out. And at the end of the video, who's the guy, the rapper guy?
Morgan Freeman? Oh, no, I don't know.
The boss, he calls himself the boss. I don't know, but
No.
he's from
Boss.
Florida, Miami. Rick Ross. Rick Ross's song comes on and it's just like, the whole thing is just so friggin' weird. But like,
Oh, right.
yeah, but it was basically I'm this lion, and all of these media people and all of these scientists and all of these educational scholars and intellectuals and the liberal elites and rich people, whatever else, right? Those are the hyenas, and they're all coming in, they're surrounding me, and eventually I'm going to strike back. And that just resonates so powerfully with the aggrieved feeling of the right wing, people out there. And so I was just watching it, and I'm like, you are not that. That is not what you are. You are a billionaire from New York City who spent his whole life lying and cheating and screwing people. Then you conned your way into the presidency, and now you're exploiting these rural, mostly white, a lot of Hispanic now, but voters, right? And it's such a but it's the narcissism, because he actually believes this stuff, right? He believes he's this hero sent to save everyone.
Someone pointed
I
out
wonder
a
how much.
beautiful little twist about that video
wonder
for
how
me.
much you believe.
Oh, did I freeze again?
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
just real quick, someone
think
pointed out a beautiful little twist. It's because the
You guys
time
have a
lapse.
pause. You guys have a
Chuck.
pause, and then one starts talking and the other does. All right, why don't we do Heather, then Chuck? Go ahead, Heather. And I think she paused. That's a great
It is a good picture.
Yeah. Great job,
Oh,
Heather.
by God, I'll go.
Chuck, you go.
Yeah, forgot what I was going to talk about now.
Oh.
No, I wonder, I honestly wonder how much of that Trump believes. I mean, I wonder how much of it's an act and how much of it is, I really believe I'm this persecuted billionaire whom, is fighting against all the hyenas. And I wonder how much of it is him saying, people will respond to that. The people will have a reaction to that. And I'm the showman supreme. So let's put it back out there. I just wonder how much of it is legit that Trump believes is bullshit. I wonder.
I think it's a mixed bag. I
Mhm.
think he's always been. I think the way that you can evaluate Trump is based on his history. I think he's always been kind of a conspiracist. He's always embraced or indulged in conspiracy theories, right?
Sure.
But
Mhm.
in addition to that, I don't think he has any qualms with just, saying things that are completely untrue. I think he is just, it's pathological, like in the sense that in the moment, he'll say whatever he has to say or whatever he feels that is in defense of his self-interest. So it
Right.
comes out authentic a lot of the time because it's anger, right? He's angry because he feels like people are attacking him personally. So that's what people latch onto. They see that as authenticity when it's not. It's narcissism and egocentrism, right? And
So today, I just got a notification from Fox News for today that Trump claims Biden must prove his votes were legal to become president. And then it says 80 million votes. He must prove that his ridiculous 80 million votes were not fraudulently or illegally obtained. That he
Right, I saw that tweet.
from the other day.
right,
And-
otherwise he can't come into the White House or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is on Fox News. Like,
But he said that. I mean, that was an actual tweet, and it's ridiculous because there's nothing he's going to do. Once Biden is legally the president, he's out, and he knows that.
right, but the only one that's like re-saying this is Fox News, is my point.
It was on other networks, but I have to say this: Fox News, at least the Brett Byers, the what's the guy's name?
Mercer?
Chris Wallace.
Chris Wallace, yeah,
Oh, Chris Wallace, yeah.
and a lot of the daytime people have done a really good job of kind of pushing back on this stuff.
They've been remarkably straight shooters in recent months anyway. Yeah.
I think they know. I think especially with the election, I think it really kind of opened some of their eyes. Like, this is really bad. Like, this is not.
Well, look
This
what
is-
we've done. That's what I mean about the politicians. Like, you give
Right.
them an inch and then it just becomes these miles that you can't take back.
And I feel like the
Sure.
Republican Party has a lot of blame in this too. Even people like Karl Rove and those type of people, because it's like they've been kind of fostering this, right? Because I know that everybody in the Republican establishment, politicians, knew that that at least some portion of their base was like this, and they didn't push back on it, right? And I feel
Right.
like that with the Obama conspiracy stuff, remember with him, living in
Yeah.
Kenya and being a Muslim and all that kind of stuff, they sort of nudged that a little bit and played into it, right? And so
Yeah.
because they didn't push back on that in the early days, I feel like it's kind of taken on a mind of its own and becoming
Yeah, they were given
Oh.
tacit approval to it, certainly. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say earlier about how I know a lot of them know better, and yet they've allowed this to happen, and then they said small things here and there that weren't truths or weren't the whole truths, and now it's just spiraled out of control. I honestly don't know how they're going to come back from this. I think one of the implications of what might happen is, maybe we get lucky and the Democrat senators win Georgia because his base doesn't want to show up and vote. Crap, did I freeze again or is that Chuck freezing? Oh,
No,
Chuck
you're
froze.
fine.
Okay.
Me
But
good.
and let's talk about 2024 or even 2022. All of these voters now don't trust the voting system. Are they going to defect and not vote because of it? Like, what do they really think they're going to accomplish in the next 4 years that's going to change whatever they're perceiving happened? I don't foresee this being some crazy riot in the streets,
but I do foresee a
Right.
lot of them saying, oh, screw that, my vote's not going to count, because they don't even know that they
Pretty
can go
well.
on the damn county website and check their vote to make sure it was counted. You know, like,
So this
That's
is,
amazing. I mean, if you want to guarantee you're going to lose, then don't vote. Yeah, I promise you'll lose then.
well, think
it's the
about the
same with
Georgia
vaccines.
election coming up, the
Mhm.
runoffs.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Are
They
they
have-
even going to win because of that?
Right. They have an actual like movement in the parlor right now where they're trying to get people not to vote in the Georgia runoff elections because they
Or
think
to
that
write in Trump.
that Purdue and Loeffler are somehow involved in this conspiracy to hurt Trump. So it's already coming out as a problem. Now, I don't necessarily know if that means, I think Ossoff and the other guy are long shots at this point, but they're not helping themselves by undermining voting, right? Because if you consistently do that and people legitimately believe it, they're not going to vote anymore. They're going to see the system as being, fixed. So
Yeah.
you're not helping
Trump
yourself
tweeted
in that
about that as well. He was
Yeah.
like, look, I was cheated, but you still have to show up and vote for these two senators. That was basically what his tweet said. So
It's completely counterintuitive, right? It doesn't make any
what
sense.
do they do? What do they do? What do we
Yeah.
think Trump's going to do come January 21st? Do we think he's going to have a ceremony for Biden, be a part of whatever ceremony they do come up with for Biden?
So I think
How do you physically think he's going to leave the White House?
I think he's going to try to have an event at the same time.
Mm.
That's one of the things that I've heard floated. I think it's likely that he would do something like that, like a
Big Trump
The
rally?
tradition is that during part of the inauguration ceremony is to have the former president there greeting the new president, and then leaving. They show the former president leaving on the jet, and then the new president participates in the official inauguration ceremony. But like Heather said, it would not surprise me that if Trump took that jet directly to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to hold a big ass rally at the same time the inauguration is going on back in Washington, D.C., just to try to, again, for the optics, to try to one up Biden. But yeah, I do think he's going to leave. I don't think he wants to be dragged out of the White House.
We're past that
When
point.
does he?
Yeah.
When does he physically pack up to leave though? Because it's not January 21st. He probably has his stuff all over the White House and needs to actually pack up and physically leave.
Heather
mean-
is very concerned
Well, I mean, if
about
you got
Trump's personal.
I don't. No,
If
I
you
don't
gotta be
think
out of
he's
your house
shit
trying
on
to
the 20th, you
stay.
start packing early.
I think it'll
Pick
be
a
a lot
bad
of fun
woman.
for the White House staff to pack him up. Be like, here's your bags, Mr. President. Like, I think it's going to be a whirlwind. And I didn't think about him trying to create some
I mean, at this point,
version,
really,
but
yeah.
he'll probably do something outrageous that day.
Pennsylvania's been certified, Michigan's been certified, Arizona's been certified, and Georgia's been certified, and Nevada's been certified. Those are the
The
states.
electors meet in 2 weeks. It'll be
The electors meet in 2 weeks. They've already been chosen. They're not going to go against the Biden. So once that's certified, they do something formal on December 8th, or at least all the certifications have to be in by then. And then December 14th, the electors
certifications
meet.
have to be with the clerk. Have to be with the clerk of the Senate by December 8th.
That's
Clerk
right.
of the Senate receives them and certifies them and gets ready for the Electoral College to assemble on the 14th, I think it is.
It is the 14th, yeah. And then once that happens, it's done. So whatever Trump is saying, he's just saying for effect. Because once that happens, he has no choice but to leave the White House. And so I kind of want him to stay just so they can take him. Like, what is your game plan here, right? And I got people online telling me, Jose, that that I'll have to wait and see because Trump's gonna, what did he say the other day? All right, well, we'll wait and see on the 21st when Trump's hands on the Bible again. And he's like, I haven't been as confident as I am right now that he won the election and all this stuff. And it's like, that's just completely crazy, right?
This guy can vote. This guy can sit on a jury and judge you. Think about that.
That dude.
Good Lord.
Right. So, and there's a lot of people out there, but in any event, I don't even understand how unbelievably, and I'm serious, fucking detached from reality would you have to be at this point with all the information out there to still think that Donald Trump is going to be the president after January 21st? You would have to be a fucking idiot, right? Like completely detached from reality. Listen, everybody who's watching this, Donald Trump lost. He lost by 6 million votes, maybe more.
Well, that doesn't matter. It's the Electoral College loss.
And he lost 306 to 232 in the Electoral College, which is technically a bigger win than he had because he had 304, right? In 2000.
No, he had exactly 306.
Oh, yeah, 306. All right. So it's the exact same number then of electoral votes, which he called the biggest win in history, right? Except he didn't even win the popular vote then, right? He still lost it by 2.9 million votes. He lost. It's just like you break up with your girlfriend, fucking
It's
accept
over.
it and walk away. It's done. It's over.
Yeah.
You guys, I
We have
get
a
it.
big,
You're
sick
grieving.
populist man.
It's like
Get the
we tell our
fuck out.
kids, our high school football team all the time. If you lose, you keep your mouth shut. You get on the bus. You go back home. You work hard, do better.
That's right.
Yeah.
Lose, you lose.
Right. You lose. Maybe he should have been a better president. Maybe he should have tried to unite the country. Maybe he should have worried about something else rather than himself.
If he had
he could've
just
just been a
responded to
halfway
COVID
decent-
the right way, he would have
Well,
stayed.
maybe,
He
yeah.
would not have been voted out.
Well, I mean,
He
if
would've
not for
stayed.
COVID, I think he gets reelected because the economy is still presumably humming along fairly well. And an incumbent president and a decent economy, it's hard to lose. But if he could have just been a halfway decent person, not a decent person, just a halfway decent person, none of this happens. He cruises to reelection with most anything, even with COVID, I believe.
And you know how
But
we
he's
know
not even
that,
halfway
Chuck?
decent.
Oh, we know that because the people, the down ballot Republicans did way better than him in like
Almost
every
in every
race.
single district, the Republican congressional candidate outpolled Trump in almost, I think, in all but just a handful of districts. So yeah, the problem wasn't anti-Republicanism because the Republicans damn near took over the House. The problem was anti-Trumpism.
Yes.
That's right.
I am curious, do you know or remember how many new voters the Republican Party got under Trump's 2016 run? Was there a lot of newly registered Republicans for that election?
I don't know how many, but yeah, I heard.
I feel
or
like I
read
remember
several
that there
reports,
was.
yeah. In
It's
terms
a
of the
different
states,
party.
yeah.
A lot
It's
of-
in terms of states registrations, there were a lot more Republicans now. And here in Virginia, we don't register by party, so you would never know. But in those
Mhm.
states where they do register by parties, both parties reported more people on the voting rolls.
Right.
But Trump
'Cause I
almost
think he had, I was just going to say, I think he had a lot to do with that, with the new registration and people, oh, reality TV star, I know who that is. I can relate. I'm not really into politics, but look at this guy. He's not a politician. Maybe things will change. And I think a lot of that happened and they've kind of been sucked at, they've been sucking on that tit ever since for fucking years. Sorry. I just think that what we saw for his votes was the people who are Republicans and have been Republicans and have voted and do hold those original values, at
over there,
least a
Nick?
fucking decorum, man.
Okay, you're
And
right.
I think that they voted against Trump, but also voted for the senators. But I think all of those newer quote unquote voters that voted for Trump also voted for the senators. So I think he did a good job for his party getting people to come into
I think we've
the
lost.
party. Are we still laughing at what I
I think
said?
we lost our host.
no. I was taking my shoes off and they're really hard to get
okay.
off. They're
Looked like you were
really-
laughing.
Yeah. No, I laughed for a little bit, sucking on tits or whatever.
I understood. I like that.
Sorry.
That was funny.
It's funny.
It's better. It's easier to say that still than to, do the other one around, which is what's really going on with extremities,
Right.
because that's what they're doing.
You can say that too.
south of the border.
We're rated R. We're rated R. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand how 73 million people can vote for this guy. That's, I think, 12 million more people than he had vote for him in 2016. I mean, it's
Yeah, and I don't want to. And again, there are some people that will, just immediately assign it to racism. I reject the notion that there are 73 million racists in the United States. I just do not think that is the case. You can have non-racist reasons to vote for Trump, most certainly. You can appreciate the judges that he appointed. You can appreciate the regulations that he lifted. You can not appreciate the alternative that the Democrats created. There are any number of reasons to vote for Trump. I couldn't do it. I mean, I have a conscience. I mean, there's no way I could look at myself in the mirror thinking what I think about this human being as a human being and vote for them. No, there's no way in hell I could do that. But I understand. I understand how some could say, all right, well, particularly if you are of the opinion that the Democrats lent tacit support to riots over the summer, if you believe that, then yes, it would be very, very easy to justify a vote for Trump. But yeah, but
the other part of this
radioactive
is
toxicity.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, if he wants to blame his loss on someone, it's right there in his face.
The other part of this is that the way that the right-wing media covers him isn't the same way that the left-wing media covers him. So the information that they're getting isn't Trump's a racist or Trump did this and it's racist. They're calling Trump a racist for doing this thing that isn't racist, right? And it's just a completely different, the information is just being circulated differently.
But the people that are on the left side of the equation will claim that they are dead center, and that we're getting back to our old argument here that they're not, and it's just very infuriating to have them keep claiming this moral imperative that they have, that we're the holy sacrosanct, totally unbiased media, and you will listen to us, and because we don't play favorites. It's very frustrating.
Yes, I have to say, I am not anti-media, but I will say that when I watch CNN, I only watch certain shows. I read about politics. I talk about it a lot. I look at every single friggin' outlet there is, right? So I feel like I have a lot of knowledge about this stuff, and I just can't watch like some of the shows on CNN. I can't watch some of the Fox shows, obviously. I don't even watch MSNBC. I think it's a little bit silly.
I barely watch any of them. I can't watch them anymore, Nick. I mean,
yeah. Jake Tapper's okay.
Yeah, this push media and the bombardment of information, I have to read it. I can't watch it anymore.
Anderson Cooper's okay. So in any event, we're in trouble. I'm not really sure if there's a way back from where we're at. If all these people, I don't know, maybe Trump leaves, he does his own thing. Because he lost the presidency, Trumpism falls out of favor, or it becomes less popular over time. And maybe there's a reality check somehow in the Republican Party. Yeah, I know it's not necessarily a likely scenario. It's
lots of wishful thinking going on over there.
Really is. You're giving them a very healthy benefit of the doubt there.
That's right. Well, so I don't know. But I do gotta get going. Thank you guys for coming. And hold on one second.
Oh, we gotta remember how to play the music now.
It's gotta get that going.
Share computer sound.
Audio.
Oh, wrong button. I don't even know where I'm going here. Oh, there we go.
2-week hiatus and he forgets everything.
Music for this.
You have to start crooning the outro music here.
There you go.
Ah, I see it. There he is. Nick is sharing computer sound. I knew you had it in you.
Step 1 complete.
I'm a technological genius.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. This button.
Okay, have a good night.
You too.